am not a particularly superstitious person, but when two chess players with an ELO rating of 666 play against each other, it's no surprise that one person is going to be cursed from the very beginning and the other person is going to have the power of God himself on their side. And so today we are going to look at a recap of exactly that match. This is a game that I played last night, and I'm going to be honest with you, I might have had a couple of drinks before playing this game, but nevertheless, I think it will be fun to watch and you guys are going to enjoy it. I'm going to try to relive what I was thinking in some of the moments and talk about some of the better positions that I probably could have played. Without further ado, let's get started. My opponent, being white, did start with the very classic e4, and I personally like to mirror the e4 opening, just coming in with my king's pawn. The reason for this is because if the opponent, if white, ends up bringing the queen out or the bishop, the response is always just going to be your knight to c6, and from there you can either move knight to f6, pawn to g6. It kind of depends on the response from the white player, but I like this opening. I've played it quite a bit. I've had a decent amount of success with black in mirroring the e4 opening specifically. He decides to move his other pawn over here, which isn't like the best move. It's not the best or the worst, but whatever. I decide to defend my pawn. He pushes up, putting some pressure on my pawn, and it's not a good idea for me to take here because he's got the pawn and the queen having a look at it. So if he takes, I take, queen takes, we're left high and dry with queen looking at the center of the board. I elect to further reinforce my e5 pawn, and he decides to close this position, or I mean, not exactly close it because it's not another pawn, but put some pressure on the knight here. So in this position, the best move was actually for me to move my knight into safety on e7. I didn't do that. I ended up putting my knight onto f6, putting some pressure on the e4 pawn. This isn't the best move. You can see by the evaluation bar, it doesn't like this move. That's okay. My brain was, again, slightly inebriated, but also I just kind of wanted to put some pressure on this. I knew that if this got taken, I could expose and open up my queen, and then if this stays undefended, I would be able to take control of the center of the board with my knight. None of this happens the way that I thought it was going to. So he takes my knight, I take with my pawn, he pushes over here with his white bishop, now pinning my knight to my queen. My response is to try to kick him with the h pawn. He decides, instead of moving up, which is pretty typical when the pawn is looking, or when the bishop is looking to either take or trade the knight, he decides to move back up to his e3 position. Totally fine. This was, I think, one of the better moves. I don't know if this was the best move or not. Sometimes I like to play game review. Sometimes I don't. It kind of clutters up the screen sometimes. So today we're not using game review, and that's okay. This does leave that e4 pawn that I was eyeing up to be captured though. He leaves that pawn hanging, and now I've got a decent amount of control over the center of the board, which I'm really liking. And even after he decides to pressure me, I just move back. We get to take that pawn completely for free. There's no reason not to just move back to where we were safely before that. There was also the possibility of moving back over to c5, maybe electing to have a bit of a trade in that situation, but moving back to where I was safe before, totally fine, totally acceptable. I do think in that position it was the best move. And he decides to develop his other bishop. Again, we're doing okay here. I decide that castling seems not bad. If he does decide to push me, I can take with my king. Then there's no more light bishop. Castling, also just a good idea in general. Lots of pieces reinforcing over here, so it's a little bit more difficult for him to start pressuring me. He moves his knight to the edge of the board, which is something I try not to do. I haven't been experimenting with it. I don't really like it. I don't think it's the best way to develop a knight, especially in these lower elos that I'm playing in, trying to become a better player. His knight is just, it's really not doing anything. Like, there's none of these pawns are going to be moving up to do anything. If he does, like, you know, take here, I'm going to take. If he jumps here, I'm going to take. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It also does leave his knight open for my bishop to decide to trade if for whatever reason he decided to castle to this side of the board. I'm not a huge fan of this move by my opponent, but that's okay. I push my pawn up here, knowing that it is defended by my bishop. The evaluation bar, the engine doesn't love this move. It kind of tilts the game a little bit more into my opponent's favor. He ends up taking my pawn, and now this is going to ruin my pawn structure, but I am going to end up ahead on material after this trade. And I do still have this knight that is protecting some of these outskirts, as well as the king being able to move if there's no double ups by the queen or anything like that. So I'm not in a horrible spot, but this is something that is also not great because I've castled and my pawn structure is getting absolutely decimated right now. And he also decides to castle. So my response is to move my queen up. And I don't really remember why I decided to do this. It actually seems like a pretty not great move. In this position, what does it want me to do instead here? Sometimes I don't really understand this evaluation bar. It liked bishop takes h3. Yeah, so it wanted me to take this in that position instead of moving the queen up, which would have made a lot more sense. Even moving the bishop over to e6 to then get the queen behind and get a little bit of a battery going on would also be okay. I like to do this. Queen moves over, looking to maybe put some pressure on this pawn if he like takes or does something weird over here. I move up, leaving this pawn hanging almost. There's a little bit of a sneaky queen covering it, but it looks like it's hanging at a first glance. He moves his queen over, putting me directly into check, which we definitely do not love. I move my king over, and he decides to now put some pressure on me in kind of a weird way. Like, he moves this knight over, and the knight is not putting any pressure on anything except for a pawn that we don't want to lose the pawn, but if he does take it, I'm just moving over with my queen and giving my queen a little bit more of a defensive position, which is really nice. So I decided to just move up, literally ignore this guy. He's not affecting me in any way whatsoever. And now I get to try to kick this light squared bishop out of here. I don't like it here. It's bothering me. If he moves here, my knight can take, putting pressure on the queen. If he moves here, my queen can take, putting pressure on the knight. If he moves here, I get to take. If he moves here, I can't take, but I can take. So there's a lot of opportunity still, just moving this pawn up, trying to kick this light squared bishop. And he actually doesn't even move it. He just leaves it. So now this bishop is completely hanging. I still don't take it yet. Don't ask me why. I think, well, okay, I know why. The reason I didn't immediately take is because when he moves his queen over here, if queen takes, I am not able to move. I'm not able to move. I could move here over to G, but then he moves down once and it's GG's. I'm going to end up losing unless I'm able to preemptively protect this pawn, right? Protecting this pawn feels really good. It means that if he does take, he's going to be getting a pawn, but losing his queen. So I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good about spotting this little trap, I suppose. And from here, this is where he really messed up because he decides to reinforce his queen, kind of ruining his pawn structure around his king. We don't love that, right? He's not going to have the same defense that he would if he had just left this pawn here. And now he is leaving the light bishop to be taken. So light bishop is hanging. I now have a passed pawn as well, which also feels pretty good. Obviously, if I move up, his knight can take, but we've got a pawn way further along on the board than he does for any of his pawns. He pushes over here, defending twice, actually 3 times with this other pawn. So he's building a little bit of a, what is the correct term? I know the term. When you've got your pawns all together, it's not a ladder. It kind of sounds like ladder. I'm really dumb. Please remind me of what that term is in the comments. Instead of defending and keeping the defense here, I decided to put some pressure on the king, putting the king into check, meaning that something has to change here. And I'm thinking if he does move up, that's going to give me a really great opportunity to get a rook for the price of a bishop. that seems pretty good. I'm already up by 4 material, and so if I'm able to, you know, be up by, I guess, a total of what? I'd be up by 9, I'd be up by 6 after the trades if he decides to defend or kind of block this with his rook. He doesn't end up doing that, but in my back pocket, I now have my light squared bishop. So now I've got both of these angles covered, and the only way to stop this is going to be either with his knight moving back or his rook. And he does elect to move his knight back, which isn't great. I don't love the idea of doing an equal trade here, because once I do this and then he does this, I could maybe move my queen over, but there's going to be things like his queen coming over here to reinforce this protection, things like his knight coming over here and reinforcing. So instead of taking right away, I'm just trying to set some stuff up. I'm just saying, okay, listen, if you're gonna do that, I need to make sure I have way more attackers on this side of the board, and I'm putting more pressure on your pieces. So at the end of all of these trades, I'm up well ahead so I can seal the deal with a checkmate. He brings his other knight over here, re-protecting this and putting pressure on this pawn. Now, if he takes this pawn, it's not the greatest thing in the world because I just take, and now we're kind of back to where we were before, but I've got a slightly advanced position. I do end up taking, he ends up taking. So we're basically where we were before, but I'm ahead by another 3 material, right? I'm getting my knight or his knight for the price of one of my pawns. Still, if I take, he takes, I move over here, he moves over here. We're kind of where we were before, but now I'm ahead by another 3 material. We like that, it feels good. And I do decide to take, he decides to take, and I move up, pinning this rook to the king, okay? I love it so far. It's a little sketchy because if this queen does move over, it's a little bit sad, but what he decides to do is reinforce this rook. So if my queen takes on the next move, and he could have done this or this, I think both of them were obviously acceptable. If he moves his queen over here, there's a chance that I move my pawn up, putting pressure on him, and if he does decide to take, I get to take back with my queen. So the reason to not do this is obviously there, probably in the back of his mind while we were playing the match. So he does bring his rook over, reinforcing, building a battery on that, linking the rooks. What is it? Connecting the rooks, I think is the way that you say that. So this is cool, right? We're kind of in the same position once again, but don't forget about our lone pawn, our little pawn boy that's over here. I decide to move up, and this is really interesting because if he decides to defend, now I get to checkmate him, right? But if he doesn't defend, I'm going to promote to a queen, and then he has to take. And that is almost what happens. He sees a little bit of light. If he preemptively moves his king, I still can't take because his king or his rook can take now. So he's kind of double protecting this rook. And if anything does happen with, me putting some pressure on him after any trades, he has another escape route. So I promote to another queen. I am now in an absolutely winning position according to the engine. He takes, I take. Now he could have done a couple of things in this position. I mean, he could have maybe moved down to protect from me putting him into check here, and also protecting the, if he moves his rook here to f2, I could take with my bishop, which actually would be a good trade for me because if he takes with his king, I'm still getting 2 material on that. It would also defend from the queen pushing over here, putting him into a check immediately. But instead of that, he moves up to his little escape route, right? The escape route that we saw earlier. I take, and he ends up resigning anyways. He kind of does not see a path to success or victory. And I felt really good about this game. I am gonna look at the game review because I had a decent rating, 75% accuracy with an ELO according to the engine of 1150. So playing above my ELO, playing pretty well. There were a couple of blunders by my opponent. So the first one was this bishop taking here. Big blunder from him because we just got that for free. And his knight moving down here was another big blunder because it allowed me to capture the knight and win material. Even though I didn't do that immediately and it was a little bit sketchy, it ended up being a blunder that did cost him later in the game. So overall, a pretty good game. We got above the 666 elo. I did fall back down a couple of games later, but overall, played pretty good. Very happy with my progress. We are going to hit 700 elo before the end of the week. After that, I would love some recommendations, some suggestions on material, books, different things that I can look at to further develop my skills. I've had some great comments from some of you guys watching. I appreciate all of them. I read everything, and I want to progress beyond the 700 elo. I'm enjoying learning at my own pace right now, but I know for a fact that I'm going to have to take it a little bit more seriously if I want to hit that 4-digit elo, if I want to get closer to 1500 or something like that. So suggestions, definitely welcome, definitely open. I would appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and it's your first time watching, definitely subscribe as I upload a new chess video every single day here on the channel. If you liked this video in particular, drop a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. It helps me out a ton. I want to remind you that you look great today. You smell great. You're a beautiful human being. I love and appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.